name is Emma. I am a self-employed personal trainer at Weights and Wine Personal Training, and I am currently 22 weeks pregnant. So I did a quick chatty Q&A on my Instagram, just answering questions, all things first trimester, and I thought it'd be really nice to jump on and do a chatty Q&A for my YouTube channel. So grab yourself a cuppa and we'll dive right in. So one of the most popular questions that I was asked in the first trimester was cravings, which is no massive surprise. Everybody wants to know if you're craving something totally weird, something that you've never eaten before. But I'll be honest, mine were very low key in terms of cravings. I'm actually really grateful for that. So my biggest things in the first trimester were salt and vinegar crisps. And specifically, I don't know if you remember them, they're quite retro, but the fish and chips crisps, the salt and vinegar ones. Oh my God, they were my jam throughout the whole first trimester. And I went through a really heavy Marmite and cheese sandwich phase as well. Now the Marmite thing does make sense. Firstly, I know it's a divisive topic, Marmite, not everyone likes it. I, however, do like a bit of Marmite. So for me, there was no great shakes, and Marmite and Vegemite and things like that has folic acid in it. So from a pregnancy perspective, it does make sense. But yes, I went through a huge Marmite phase, which coincided with the salt and vinegar. So you can imagine the taste buds, they were having a smashing time at that point during my first trimester. I also really craved some sweets, not a lot of things like chocolate necessarily, but I really liked things like Frutellas, quite a retro sweet, and jelly beans and Skittles, kind of like chewy, fruity sweets. So if I had to pick the things that I circle back to the most during that first trimester, I would say those are my key go-tos. And on the whole, as I would imagine everyone tells you, the first trimester, very beige. But to be honest, if you're experiencing any kind of sickness or nausea, I would say like lean into the beige. If it's all you can get down you, then that has got to be better than nothing, hasn't it? Let's be honest. I was also asked about things that I went off, you know, things that I had like a real aversion to. I'll be honest and say I didn't have any like sort of big issues with smells or tastes necessarily. On the whole, I went off processed meats. So processed meats that you would get like on pizza toppings, like pepperoni, salami, things like that. I also really went off sausages, mince, a lot of the red meats, ham, things like that. I don't know why in particular, whether it was a taste or a texture thing, but for some reason I just had a huge aversion to that. And to be honest, that hasn't really come back at any point, but I'm sure it will do. But other than that, there was nothing out of the, I mean, yeah, there was nothing else that I really couldn't stand. I think that was about it. I didn't really want any kind of strong tastes or flavours necessarily. Again, beige bandwagon, but I craved more of that comfort food, I suppose. But then again, Marmite, so I'm like a walking contradiction. But yeah, those would be my top kind of aversions that I had in the first trimester. Another big question was obviously morning sickness and sickness in general. Did I suffer with it? How bad was it? I'll be honest, I didn't suffer that badly with sickness at all. So there were a couple of things that I really struggled with. One was a feeling of being quite nauseous or sick when I was hungry. So if I went too long in between meals, I found that really difficult because it would kind of, that empty feeling I think was what made me feel quite sick. So I found actually trying to eat little and often really helped balance that out. But I didn't have these kind of random waves of nausea that hit me sporadically throughout the day, which I know really impacts some people. So I was very fortunate in that sense. The only thing that's really made me quite sick during the first trimester and into the second has been brushing my teeth, which feels like a strange thing, but actually having spoken about it publicly on Instagram, loads of people message me and said they have a really weird aversion to brushing their teeth as well. So for some people, I think it's the minty toothpaste thing. And for others, I think it's the actual act of brushing your teeth. Mine is the act of brushing my teeth. I don't have an issue with the toothpaste, but a hack for you is to switch to a children's toothpaste if it is the minty taste that's making you feel ill. Apparently that is meant to be a big game changer. But I have basically switched between a manual and an electric to make sure that I can actually brush my teeth. And I've realised that I have quite a small window of time in which to get the teeth brushing done. So it's a strange one, but if you suffer with it, then you are not alone. There are so many stressed out women out there who are really struggling to brush their teeth. So that's a weird one from me, but there you go. Another popular question was like, what have I been eating generally? Obviously, I'm a personal trainer and I think people have quite high expectations of us maintaining a very healthy, balanced diet throughout pregnancy. I will be really transparent here. My first trimester was very beige. It was very beige, which I don't feel anything about, to be honest. I kind of lent into when I did crave certain things, I sort of embraced that and enjoyed it quite a lot. I think because for a lot of the time, you're not necessarily feeling like you want to enjoy food, which if you are a massive foodie and I love my food, that feels really sad when you can't just enjoy your food. So I would say whatever you do fancy, like embrace it. It's not forever. Do you know what I mean? So bread, toast, sandwiches, pasta. I loved pasta bakes, things like that, like really warming, wholesome food. I was also in my first trimester over Christmas. Ideal time for all of the beige party food. So I was super happy about that, to be honest. Um, but yeah, other than that, as and when I feel more inclined to, or I've got the appetite for it, I've really enjoyed having bits of fruit with my lunch and yogurts. Again, something that I never really used to have with my lunch, but I've gone through a real yogurt phase. I've been loving granola. So I kind of think go with what you're really fancying and don't be too judgmental about it. I think we get too hyped up on the amount of calories, and yes, we should have some extra calories, not massive amounts, but I think don't overanalyze it, especially if you're really struggling with sickness and nausea. Just lean into what you fancy and go with it. Another question, especially after I announced it from our 12-week scan I had, was how have I been feeling kind of generally, like overall, how have I been feeling? And I would say for the most part during those first 12 weeks before we announced it, very anxious. That would be my overarching feeling. Quite overwhelmed by it in these phases of sort of disbelief, excitement, fear, worry, you know, the whole cycle. I didn't particularly enjoy the first 12 weeks and not being able to tell people. I obviously am a personal trainer, so I do one-to-one sessions with my clients like day in, day out. It's my bread and butter. And I felt like I really struggled with those conversations and keeping in touch with everybody, and obviously knowing that there's this huge thing happening and I'm not talking about it. I found that very strange. I found it at times quite isolating, quite lonely, which I never thought I'd say actually, but I think not being able to tell people, and understandably so, because if you are anxious and you're not sure that everything's going to be okay and you want to make sure that you get past that 12-week stage before you start talking to people about it, it 100% makes sense. But it is really tricky because as a PT, I also get to find out really early on with my clients, because if they continue to train, especially during the very initial stages of the first trimester, they're often very anxious, very unsure about what they can do, especially if it's their first pregnancy. So I have found out with most of my clients, like in the very early week stages. So to then not be able to sort of communicate that back has been really bizarre. But yeah, I honestly struggle with those first 12 weeks. From a support perspective, once I announced it, I felt like this huge relief, you know, this huge weight lift off your shoulders. But that initial period of time of not being able to communicate with people and not be transparent about what you're going through and sort of let people know how you're actually feeling and how overwhelmed you are and how nervous you are is really strange. So if you are in those initial few weeks pre kind of announcement and you've maybe told like a couple of people who are really close to you and nobody else, and you are feeling quite isolated and quite lonely, just know that is totally normal. I've 100% felt like that. And since announcing it, it does feel like you sort of lift a weight a little bit. People are so lovely when you tell them that you're expecting, and they have the best advice and help and can sympathize with how you're feeling and the symptoms and what you're experiencing. And that is sometimes kind of all you need. But yeah, if I had to summarize the first 12 weeks, it definitely wasn't my favorite part of the pregnancy. And I'm pretty sure most pregnant women would say the same thing. it's awful because you feel like you're being massively ungrateful because this amazing thing is happening and you're so happy that you've managed to conceive and all of that. But with that comes a lot of other emotional stuff, and I think it's really important to be transparent about that rather than sort of hide from it or almost feel guilty or ashamed that that's how you feel about it. So just know, if you are in the first 12 weeks, you can always reach out to me on social media. I am super discreet and I will always keep your secrets, but I will also be so excited and happy for you. But know that if you're finding that stage really difficult because it's all new and weird and strange and isolating, then know that that is totally normal. Another question that we got was, how soon did we find out? So how early into being pregnant did we find out we were pregnant? And the answer is very, because I've been using natural cycles and tracking my cycle for about 3 years now. So yeah, that's about right. I started using natural cycles like at the beginning of the pandemic. I had been on oral contraceptive for about 10 years before that point. So I knew that I wanted to shift away from using that, try and get my cycle nice and regular, pre even attempting to conceive. So I switched to natural cycles, which, if you haven't heard of before, essentially you are using a thermometer every day to record your basal metabolic temperature. First thing when you get up, you put the thermometer under your tongue, it gives you a reading, you stick it in the app and it tracks your cycle. You also record in there when your period starts, how you're feeling, all kinds of stuff. It's brilliant, and I personally absolutely love using it. I'm a huge advocate. So we were using that, which meant that we'd switched to trying to conceive, so that it was telling us when we were due to ovulate, and that gave us a good aim for trying to conceive. It obviously worked because we got pregnant, but it meant that I knew exactly when I was a day past my period, so a 1 day missed period, and I did a pregnancy test that day and found out we were pregnant. So we were super early stages, which is both good and bad. But yes, so we did find out very early doors, which meant I especially felt like I'd been pregnant for like 100 years before I told people that I was pregnant. But obviously that wasn't the case. But that is the downside to finding out super early. But then I would say we did also go for an early scan at 8 weeks, and that was definitely worth it, because waiting until 12 weeks when you find out really early, it feels like such a long time, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't wait. So I have zero regrets that we went and got an early scan, and it helped ease some of those first time pregnancy anxieties for sure. I've also been asked a lot about energy levels, energy levels overall. How have I been feeling? Have I had good energy, low energy? Has it varied that much? Because I obviously have quite an active job. I coach my clients online, so I'm doing video sessions throughout the day, and I also have my app, so I'm supporting clients online pretty much 24/7. I would say that it's like a roller coaster, both emotionally and physically, but in terms of your energy levels, it's definitely like a roller coaster. So you're constantly kind of ebbing and flowing. And so for me, it was really learning about like how to lean into the good energy days and how to let the bad energy days go. Because I'm very hard on myself, very self-critical. I'm one of those people that's like, oh, gotta get up and do stuff all the time. That's very difficult when you have really low energy. And I think there are some days where you have to just admit defeat and be like, do you know what? Today is a duvet day on the sofa. This is not a productivity day. And actually, for the most part, for me, I used a lot of my energy to give back to my clients. That was a really important part that I wanted my business to run as if nothing had changed when I found out I was pregnant. So I put a lot into that. And I think knowing your limits, your new limits, it's quite difficult. It's quite a journey to kind of understand how you're going to feel. And sometimes it doesn't feel like there's any reason why on some days you feel great and on other days you feel awful. You just feel genuinely awful. You're like, I literally don't want to get out of bed. But I think you need to remind yourself that you are growing a human, you're going through something physically that you've never been through before, and emotionally something that you've maybe never been through before. It's a lot to do, it's a lot to take on. And I think use your energy as best you can, but always keep a little bit in reserve. So if you're doing your workouts, don't go in at like 90%, go in at like 60, 70%, and know that you've got like a little reserve, because then the next day you might feel really lethargic, really tired, and the whole day is a massive struggle. So it's knowing kind of when your peak best times of day are, when your peak days are in the week, and I guess trying to reschedule your lifestyle, or if you're like me, you're self-employed, you run your own business, learn how to tweak the priorities of your business so that you can give your energy in the right way, and then not expecting you to be like boom, boom, boom on like a Friday, if like by that point you're done. So yeah, where possible, like front load your week if you're better at the start of the week, or front load your day if you know that beyond sort of midday you're just you're nose diving. Everybody is different, but personally for me, mornings are better. Anything after lunchtime, iffy. Some days are better than others, and sometimes there is literally no reason why. I was also asked about exercise and workouts in the first trimester. Now, this was inevitable because I'm a personal trainer, so everybody wants to know what you're doing, what you're not doing, how you've been getting on. And full transparency, I did not do consistent exercise at all during the first trimester. There's so much going on, and I think every pregnancy is different, and in no way am I justifying why I didn't train that much. It just didn't happen. I didn't feel great, I didn't have the energy, my body felt all kinds of weird. I also had lots of anxiety about being pregnant and lots of worries about the pregnancy. So for me, it wasn't the primary focus. My clients were important to me, so I was being active. We obviously have our border collie, Bess, so I was walking her on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day. But other than that, I wasn't kind of overly fixated on it, to be honest with you. I kind of did it if I felt good and I had the energy for it, and then the rest of the time I sort of let it go. For me, my attitude about exercise is that it's always there and it should be something that adds to your life. And so if I was doing it just for the sake and I'm kind of pushing through fatigue, to me, that's not its purpose. It's not how I train my clients. It's not how I train my pregnant clients either. So yes, massively support and encourage exercise during pregnancy, especially in the first trimester. And if it feels great for you, then boom, do it. But there's a lot of pressure on social media, and you see a lot of people training throughout the whole pregnancy and doing lots of different things. But remember, their starting point and your starting point are different. Your pregnancy, their pregnancy different, your lifestyle's different, all that kind of stuff, like put it into context. But yeah, for the most part, first trimester, I didn't really need to change anything massively, but I did feel weird sometimes about the fact that I was pregnant and I was exercising, and so I did take that into consideration. There were certain things that just didn't feel great or I just didn't want to do, so I took them out. And I would say everybody is different, every pregnancy is different, so you really do need to go off like how you're actually feeling and worry less about what you think you should be doing, because pregnancy is long, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So if that means scaling back, taking your time, missing a couple of weeks, or totally changing and reframing the way that you currently do exercise, that's okay, because you're going to be in this for the long haul. So yeah, the first trimester for me was iffy with exercise, but on the whole I tried to stay active. That's the kind of way I looked at it. Try and stay active, up on my feet, moving around, but worrying less about the specificness of the training that I was doing or the exercises that I was doing. So I hope that makes sense. So there you have it. That is the majority of the questions that I got about first trimester pregnancy, and I guess specifically from my lifestyle, my job, what I do, because I'm a self-employed personal trainer, I work from home. So I'm hoping that gives a little bit of insight and hopefully restores a little bit of sanity to you if you're going through the first trimester and you're feeling all of the feels. I know it's a lot, it is a lot. Pregnancy in itself is just a lot, let's be honest, but if you're navigating the first trimester and you're finding it difficult, or you're finding it's not all sunshine and roses and maybe what you hoped and wanted it to be, and actually it's far more challenging and it's far more stressful or anxiety inducing or overwhelming than you ever expected it to be, just know that you are not alone. That does not make you a bad person if you're feeling all of the feels. I feel like pregnancy is like an emotional roller coaster and you just got to strap yourself in, and for the most part just kind of go with it, see what happens. But no matter where you are on your pregnancy journey, or if you're trying to conceive, or whether you've just had a baby, I hope that you're okay. Remember to fill up your cup, look after yourself. You are so important in this process. I know we all fixate on the bump, but actually, you know, you are the most important part in this process. So I hope that was helpful. I will do another chatty Q&A for the second trimester, and make sure you give me a follow for more pregnancy videos. And if you're not already, go and give me a follow on Instagram as well. I will add my details. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching. Bye guys.